Meowdy everyone, I'm Asti Spumante, and today on Eorzean Home Living, we're making ginger cookies! These are based on the cookies from the game itself. The description mentions they're specifically black mage shaped, but I've made designs for all the other mages too. The recipe and a printout template of the mage shapes are linked in the description below. There's no special tools required, by the way, but the cast time on this recipe rivals Flare, so expect it to take the whole afternoon. Alright, let's get to this! First, you'll need to cut out your templates. You'll want to use parchment paper for yours, but to keep this easy for y'all to see, I'm using index cards. You'll also want to cut out the templates for the face stamps. Again, you should use something food safe like parchment paper. Then, grab a potato, or two if you're prone to mistakes like me. This is what we're making the face stamps with. You don't have to peel them, but do wash them thoroughly. Using a sharp knife like a paring knife, chop your popoto into some chunks. Next, place one of the face patterns onto the potato chunk. Using a chopping motion, cut around the edges of the pattern. Try to keep it straight, and don't be afraid to cut past your pattern. Just don't cut through it. Be careful and intentional with your cuts. This stamp will affect each cookie it's used on. Once you've got the rough shape, remove the pattern and clean up the outline. Now, let's make some eyes. I find using my fingernail makes this quick and easy work. Just make sure you've scrubbed your hands super clean, okay? Using a scooping motion first on one side of the eye, then the other, you'll make an eye. You can repeat the scooping motion to enlarge the eye, but you can't make them smaller, so use care. Look at that, an eye! Now repeat for the other eye. Once you're done with the stamp, pop it into a bowl of water. This will keep it from turning colors. On to the red mage! As you can see, this one is a lot faster, but still, take care. If you mess up a stamp, you have to start all over with it. Now let's do white mage. This one is also pretty quick. Rounding shapes takes a little time, but don't rush it, okay? If you don't want to use your fingernails to make the eyes, you can use your knife, but it takes a bit more time and requires a lot of caution. Brace your index finger against the back of the knife to help control it better and cut at an angle. As you can see, it looks okay, but not quite as good. And lastly, black mage. You're still going to make straight cuts, but just slightly change the angle as you make them to get that round shape. Be careful with your finger placement while cutting. It's really easy to cut yourself if you try to rush it. As you can see, I have a lot of leftover potato from the offcuts, but it all went into a hearty pot of grade 2 Sky Builder stew, so nothing went to waste. Peel off the template, then go ahead and whittle the spud into an even more gently rounded shape. Then, you guessed it, time for more eyes. Go ahead and put this one with all the other stamps and put the bowl aside. Now, onto the cookie dough. Preheat your oven to fire 4, then start with softened butter or butter alternative. Then, sugar. You're going to beat the sugar and butter until incorporated. I like using a mixer, but you can mix it by hand too. Now give it a splash of vanilla and an egg. Go ahead and mix it all together. Now flour. Unfortunately, I don't have a gluten-free version, but let me know in the comments down below if y'all would be interested. And a little bit of almond flour. That's right, I don't mix all of my dries beforehand, because that would be another bowl to wash. On to our spices and leavening. We have baking powder, salt, ginger, and my twist, Liebkuchen spice. If you don't have Liebkuchen or gingerbread spice, you can double the ginger. I've got more flavoring options in the linked recipe, by the way. Now give the dries a lazy stir to vaguely mix them together, then mix everything together. I prefer to do this with a spatula so I don't get flour everywhere. It should come together easily within a few minutes. It's a fairly dry dough. If it feels sticky or wet, then add a skosh more flour and keep mixing. This would be when I learned my fresh box of parchment is white, so I didn't need the index cards earlier. Oops. Place half your dough on the parchment, then sandwich it. Go ahead and give it a good squish to save yourself some rolling. Now roll it out. I know what you're thinking, but the offhand tool for us culinarians is a knife, not a rolling pin. A wine bottle works really well, by the way, if you also don't have a drawer big enough to keep a rolling pin. Roll the dough to a 1/4 inch thick, slide it onto something flat like a cutting board, then hit it with good old Blizzard 1 or a quick trip to the freezer to firm it up. You can roll out the other half of the dough while you wait. It should be firm, but not frozen solid. Now place your stencil and get to cutting. You really want to use the tip of your knife only when doing drawing or dragging motions like this. And again, don't be afraid to cut past the stencil as long as you aren't cutting through the stencil. The more of these you do, the faster you'll get, but this part does take quite a while. It's actually a funny story on why I first made these cookies. Back when the new wards were set to come out, there was no way I'd be able to save up enough gil in time for their release, and y'all know how housing is. So a friend in my free company gave me a small loan of a few million gil with the very agreeable interest rate of 1 lolafel a week. We have the vegetarian in the basement of our free company house, so I assume it's to feed that. Obviously it was a joke, but a spumante always pays her debts, and ginger cookies are basically lolafel shaped. So I counted how many weeks it would likely take to pay off the loan and got to baking. This is a spring relay dough, so it's actually sturdy enough to ship, and like other common Christmas cookies, it has a long shelf life, in case these got delayed in transit. I included other mages mainly because an entire raid of only black mages is not a balanced party. I like to cut away the excess to make it easier to move the cookie. Slide a rubber spatula under the cookie to move it. And remove the stencil. Grab the face stamp, and press it in, wiggling it free afterwards. Potato stamps seem like a lot of effort up front, but they save a lot of time. Now grab some of the offcut dough. It's time to make some more details. First we'll do the edge of the robes. Make a triangular snake. Check to make sure it's long enough. Then cut it in half and drape it on. Lightly press down to join the cookie to the base. Then grab a little bit and roll it into a ball. Press it down under the face. For the last few details, we'll use the back of the knife to press the pattern of the cuffs. Then use your spatula to gently transfer your black mage onto a greased cookie sheet. Now let's work on our blue mage. I'm gonna speed up the cutting footage or else we're gonna be here all night. Once again, slide your spatula under your mage to free them. Then remove the stencil. If part of the cookie sticks, gently tap it back into the right shape. You might also want to use baking spray on your stencil and spatula to prevent sticking. Use the face stencil, then wiggle it free. Use the back of your knife to draw the edges of our blue's coat with. Then do the cuffs like on the black mage. Grab some of the spare flat dough and cut out a tie shape. Tap it down into place. Cut out a small triangle for the tie's knot. Tap it into place. Use the spatula to gently move our blue to the baking sheet. And now onto our red mage. This is by far the hardest and most time-consuming of the patterns, so I'd suggest either skipping it or only cutting it out of well-chilled dough. Use your spatula to free our red mage. You'll notice I used baking spray on my spatula to help move it. Peel off the template. Then grab your knife and clean up the edges. Stamp in the face. Use the back of the knife for the boot details, and also to mark the edges of the gloves. Then use a flat piece of offcut to first cut a long diamond. Then cut the fat end into 3 points because we're making the cravat. Use the back of the knife to add indentations to show the folds of the cravat. Then tap it into place. You may want to re-indent the cravat. Roll a small piece of dough into a ball for the brooch. Then move it onto the baking sheet. And onto the white mage. I'll be honest, the dough is a bit too pliable. I should have chilled it again. But the white mage shape is the most forgiving of them, so I decided to live dangerously. Use your spatula to move your mage. Then peel off the template and stamp on the face. Use the back of the knife for the sleeve detail. And also for the bottom of the coat. Cut out a thin strip of flat dough for a belt and press it into place. Then roll a small amount of dough into yet another brooch and press it into place. Use your spatula to gently move your mage to the baking machine. Repeat all of this until you're out of dough or patience, whichever comes first. Till your mages using Blizzard until they're firm again, then use that fire for proc or put them in the preheated oven. Bake them until their edges are golden brown, about 8 minutes. And that's it, you've got your own ginger mages. They're great with hot cocoa or for paying off your Lalafell-based debts. Let me know if there's any recipes you'd like to see. I don't have a regular upload schedule, so I'd suggest subscribing if you don't want to miss future recipes. Have a good night, everybody!